And hello, everyone. I'm your host, Guy. Today, joined with special guest Lottie. Did I say that correctly?
Yep. Lottie, close enough.
Lottie. Okay, Lottie. Thank you. Join with our special guest, Lottie. Before we jump in, if you're a first-time visitor to the Unseen Journey, do us a favor. Reach down there, hit the like and subscribe button. We're brought to you by Operation Red Wings Foundation, who's running veterans retreats for spouses, female veterans, individual male veterans, couples, and families. So we've got something for all of you. If you want to know more about the foundation, how you can get involved, or how you can come through a retreat, after you hit that like and subscribe button, we'll have a link so you can go visit our website. So let's kind of jump in here. I know we were talking a little bit off camera before we got started. I want to start with you have a friend with you, and you said that friend changed your life. So would you like to introduce your friend?
This is Cooper the Corgi.
Yes. I
Yes,
love that.
we actually have an Instagram that my daughter and TikTok that my daughter helped us set up. It's called Lottie and Cooper Around the World. Yes, he did.
Nice.
He did change my life. We are traveling full time helping other veterans, and I would not be able to do that if it was not for him. He's my service dog, and he's task
Nice.
trained to help me with my PTSD from
That's very cool.
my issues in the military, from the military, sorry.
Oh, that's super cool. So I have a German Shepherd. My German Shepherd's named Finn, and he's task trained as well. His tasks are pressure and distraction. So what's Cooper? What is he trained for?
Cooper does DBT therapy, like yours. He
Awesome.
also does crowd control,
Okay.
behavior interruption. He also
Yeah.
alerts me to a panic attack, so that I have
Okay.
time to get out into a safe space, so that he can do the DBT therapy. Because I still
Nice.
have night terrors. He also wakes
Yep.
me up from the nightmare and to allow to do DBT therapy in that situation as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so glad. And you got Cooper. You said you got him from or her from an organization.
No, he's a him, and he
Him.
was
Okay.
from a veterans farm in Decatur, Illinois, that uses their
Very
horses for
cool.
equestrian therapy for veterans, and he was gifted to me with a
Awesome.
puppy. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, well, cool. Well, let's chat a little bit about you and your story. So, you want to give us kind of your military background a little bit and
Yeah.
how
I
far
went
you
into.
were?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know where to start. This is my first podcast.
You're good. You're good. You can just say whatever you want. Give us the once over the world.
Okay. I joined the military December of 1991. I actually went in on New Year's Eve. Great
Okay.
way to start the new year, right? So I'm a Desert Storm
Yeah.
veteran.
Awesome.
And I joined. I was raised by my uncle, who was a Vietnam veteran. He took me in when I
Okay.
was 9 years old. Great man. That was why I joined the military. I went into the Air Force as a med tech, and
Nice.
unfortunately, I'm one of the statistics of being assaulted and subsequently raped when I was in the military, and that was ended up being the downfall of my career that I could not recover from, and I ended up getting medically retired.
Okay. And we were chatting a little bit, before the podcast. You were saying you now live back near the area where the incident happened. Is that correct?
Actually, I'm here for 2 months, and because I'm
Okay.
traveling full time helping other veterans.
Got
And
it. Okay.
right now, I'm in the Biloxi area, which is Keesler Air Force Base. And yes, this
Yes.
is the base that my assault happened. And before coming here, I spoke with my PTSD trauma therapist. I was
Okay.
very nervous about coming here, but the
I bet.
veterans that I was in communication with really needed me to come here and help them. So I was very nervous as she went over my steps and how to use my service dog. And one of the things was when I first got here to go on the base, find the dorm where it happened, see how I felt. And she had an appointment slotted for that day. Lo and behold, what ended up happening is went to the base, found the dorm. The dorm has been demolished. So the
Awesome.
relief that came from that happening
Yes.
was unbelievably like a weight had been lifted. And
Yeah, for
so
sure.
had that appointment and talked through the emotions and everything with her. And having that finding out that had been demolished has
Yeah.
been amazing for me, that it's actually been better seeing that it's been demolished has been better being here. I'm actually glad that I came, actually glad that I was able to see that it's been gone,
Yeah.
and being back in the area and almost like overcoming those demons of where the trauma happened.
Yes. So, a big part of that, right, as we say, the unseen journey, honestly finding that inner strength and courage to move through that fear of what you were going to experience, what you were going to feel, to then going and actually allowing yourself to have those feelings and emotions at that place in that moment. That, to me, that speaks volumes, because that is so much courage to just even fly into the area, let alone go onto the base and go to where, this building got torn down from. um, I would say probably your worst experience in your life,
Yes.
right?
Now, driving on the base, having the security police forces scan my ID card, the knots and the nausea that I felt in my stomach was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. It was almost like in my mind, going back to the day that they had to take pictures of my bruises and my assault. They had to subdue me. I was not going to let it make them easy. They knocked my teeth out. So I wasn't going to make it easy. So instantly when he was scanning my card to let me on base, everything flashed back. So because just blocks up from that entrance was where the dorm was. So I had to pull over to the side of the road before going to the dorm and actually physically threw up. I had opened the door and threw up. That's how physical those memories came back. And I
Yeah.
almost backed out. I honestly almost backed out, but I had my service dog and he alerted and we went through the process, and everything I learned from the retreat came back to me, and I used everything that they had taught me. And I actually have the alpha stim that they had helped
Nice.
me get. And I had that with me because I, had everything in place
Yeah.
that I needed. I used that and I got my stuff together and I said, okay, we're going to do this. I'm here. We're going to do this. If I'm going to help any of the veterans, I need to make sure I have my stuff together while I'm here. And then
Yeah.
when, got myself together, went ahead and went, and I was like, oh my God, it's not here. And just the sense of relief, I'm glad I did it.
So there is so much to unpack in everything you just said. And by the way, if I haven't said it, congratulations. And it is incredible and awesome that you were able to allow yourself to move through this experience, because so many veterans will just completely avoid where things happened and never ever try to kind of move through that experience, I guess is the way I would phrase it. So I wanted to unpack a couple things before I jump back over to you. So you said, you pulled over the car and the feelings, the emotions were so real that you had to get out and throw up. And then it's interesting to me that the things that helped you work through that moment, right? And we'll jump back and we'll talk about your retreat in a little bit. But the things that helped you work through that moment were your service dog and
Correct.
your alpha stim. So for our
Yes.
listeners who don't know what an alpha stim is, it's a medical device. You can hook it to your ears. It also has some pain probes. It's designed for anxiety, depression. It helps your brain. Yep, it helps your brain basically work through and balance out where your nervous system is at, right? Because our nervous system can bounce into this fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and then the other side is our rest and digest. So it's helping bring down that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and bring up that rest and digest, which then allows our mind to start to process, come back into the moment. And then you had your service dog there. What I want to really point out to that is, one, good for you in knowing that you are going to need these tools to get through this moment. And two, I think it shows how far the veteran community is coming, and even the VA community, in terms of not just saying like, oh, all you need is these pill bottles, right? And instead saying, here's an alpha stim, use it as needed. Here's your dog. Your dog is going to, be there in the moments you need your dog, right? And I think that's really a really cool thing to point out, right?
The only thing I will add, that's the other reason I'm traveling full time to help veterans, is
Yes.
sadly, some of the VAs are a little bit behind.
Okay.
And that's why I'm walking veterans through the steps to get their alpha stim. I'm always suggesting that they go through the retreat first so that they
Okay.
know firsthand how important this tool is, and they
Yes.
can try it out first. And then
Yes.
I'm walking them through the steps of how to get it, because it is, depending on the VA, if they are not
Oh yeah.
aware of it, it is kind of a fight. And there are steps that they still need to go through. For example, I had to go through a sleep apnea test and get a negative sleep apnea test first.
Yeah.
And then still it was a couple months between the retreat and by the time I got it, because they still were kind of unsure about it. And I still
Right.
had to get more paperwork from the retreat and send to them to actually prove, even after I had the negative sleep apnea test, how beneficial this would be to me versus being a zombie on meds. And
Yeah. You
so
you had more of a battle than I did. So my story in terms of getting my alpha stim is kind of similar. Um, so I went through similar like you. I went through when it was still Lone Survivor Foundation before we renamed into Operation Red Wings Foundation, which at this point has now been around for 14 years. And So I went to the individual male retreat. I went to one of the locations out in Texas. And while I was there, my mindset when I went to the retreat was I'm going to try everything and I'm going to try everything like all in as much as I can, right? So like when it's time for my therapy sessions, we're holding nothing back. When it's time for me to go to these group classes or whatever, like it's open book. And I remember getting introduced to the Alpha Stim. I want to say it was like the Friday morning small group session, I think. And our yogi said very clearly, like, hey, like, just use it as much as you can. It's not about putting it on max level. You got to find the level that works kind of like with your brain and your body. And I use that thing probably 2 to 3 times a day. And it took me all day Friday, all day Saturday. Saturday night was the first time I found where it kind of gave me that relaxing wave. And honestly, I fell asleep in the chair in one of the common areas, which I would have never done and would have never done pre doing that alpha stim. And I have mine still to this day and it travels with me as well. So yeah, you're right. It's going to those retreats is been a huge benefit for me and for you. And now that you're out there sharing some of these tools is really cool because, yeah, not all VAs are equal. Not all VAs understand all the VA contracts and all those things. So tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, we kind of go backwards. Tell us a little bit about how you got to, then Lone Survivor Foundation to the retreat and kind of that whole process leading up to that and your experience, please.
at that time, I was still kind of, I guess they would call it borderline agoraphobic. I
Yeah.
hadn't really started addressing a lot of my issues.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was in denial or just letting the VA give me all these meds. Still kind of a
Right.
zombie. Only would really go out and live my life if my daughter was with me, because I'm divorced. So if she wasn't with me, I was pretty much a homebody.
Yeah.
And isolating, self-isolating. People would
Yeah, for
invite
sure.
me out and I would find one excuse after another, right? That's, the old tale of what happens. But I was always on the internet, on Facebook, and I'd been joining all these, veteran groups, and someone in a female veteran group had mentioned Lone Survivor. And I was like, oh, okay, that looks interesting. And I talked to my daughter about it and she was like, Mom, if you apply and they accept you, you really should go. And
Yeah.
that was kind of like the first inclination of her letting me know, she was getting ready to go off to college. She was worried about me, maybe you should kind of go, and I want to make sure you're okay while I'm off at college.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
applied and, they talked to me over the phone and I was like, oh, okay, I'm interested, kind of on the fence. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I'm going to go. I'm going to go ahead and go. And I'm
Yeah.
glad I went because from the start to finish, they were very compassionate, kind of almost treated me with kid gloves, almost like they kind of knew without me saying anything. And that meant a lot to me. So I slowly got more comfortable. And like you, I decided if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it all in.
Hmm.
And that therapy, I'd never done a therapy like that with the hand or
Yeah.
anything.
Accelerated
And
resolution therapy. Yep.
exactly. And it opened up so much for me. I've been married more than once. In fact, that helped me realize that the first marriage I had, I should not have had because it was one of the SPs that showed up for that assault
Mm.
and helped me realize that that wasn't exactly healthy. And I had thought at the time that he was my knight in shining armor. And she helped me realize, well, you might have thought that, but that's not exactly how it really was because he should have known better than to ask you on a date a week after he showed up for your assault.
Hmm.
So it opened up a lot of like kind of Pandora's box,
For sure.
and it started the process of me finally addressing things, finally learning how to heal, and finally actually realizing I have PTSD. That
Yeah.
was the first time I accepted that I had PTSD and that it wasn't actually normal PTSD. I guess it was complex PTSD because since I had never addressed my trauma, I had other traumas after that that compounded it. So that's how it turned into complex PTSD. And
Right.
that was the start of me actually healing. And like you, it took me a couple days of using that 2 or 3 times a day where I actually did fall asleep, but mine was falling asleep in one of the yogi sessions. And I
Nice.
would have never done
Nice.
that. Yeah, I would have never done that either because I can never shut my brain off.
Yep.
I've got the monkey, I call it monkey chatter, where I can never, I can never relax.
I love
I
that.
can never just chill. The monkey chatter's always
Yeah.
going around on repeat, but I
Yeah.
fell asleep in a yogi session with this on. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that was my first inclination that this is actually working. And I
Nice.
followed through.
That's very cool. That's awesome. And again, that courage, right? And in that moment, did you already have your service dog before you went to the retreat, or you got your service?
I had just been gifted him.
Okay.
So actually, they actually gave me all the tools to help make him into a service dog
Nice.
because I guess he was in training because he
Yes.
was just, so they gave me all the tools so that when I got back,
Very
not only
cool.
did I enroll in the PTSD trauma therapy program
Okay.
at the VA, I
Yes.
found, is it called TADSAW? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
It's TADSAW and a local organization. So between TADSAW
Yeah.
and Harvey and Company in Wisconsin, those two helped get him
Very
trained to where
cool.
he needed to be.
That is awesome. And again, so much like leading up to go visiting the base, leading up to go to this retreat, again, somehow you were able to find that courage, right? To say, I know this is not going to be comfortable. I know this is not going to be easy, but I'm going to go, right? And in that moment, I'm going to say your support, your rock was your daughter, which is awesome. Like
Yes.
that's really cool. Yeah, for
Yes. And
sure.
I'd like to say, I think she's proud of me. She's noticed the definite difference. I used to
Yeah,
say I'm sorry all the time, and she's pointed out that I don't say it as often. There's just
yeah,
little changes that she's noticed. So,
yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, and just for our listeners, right? The retreats ORW Foundation does. We have clinicians there, so we have. You can either do talk therapy, you can do accelerated resolution therapy. We have the yogis at the retreats. You learn about the alpha stim and the heart math, all these cool things. So do us a favor, reach down there, hit the like and subscribe, then get on our link, check it out. It's 100% free. Whether you're coming as the veteran, whether you're coming to a spouse retreat, a couples, a family, just come out because I agree with you. I think they are life changing. I came back and I was like not fully understanding yet. Kind of my brain was still processing, like you said, through the layers, right? Because I had
Yeah.
trauma from combat deployments. I had some personal trauma. So my mom was killed. The individual was charged with vehicular manslaughter, actually.
Oh,
And that was almost 19 years ago. So I was brand spanking new into the military, right? Um, and and you start to layer these things, right? Because I never went to therapy or went to help or processed through my mom, right? And then I went off to combat, and then you get some of those traumas because we lost our unit on my first major deployment lost 6 individuals, and so now you start to layer that exactly what you're saying. It becomes this whole just where do you kind of start, and where do you kind of start to take away the pieces so that slowly but surely we can find a way to heal and to live a little bit more of a normal life. And now it sounds like
yeah.
you're totally doing that. So what led you to I guess what led you to understanding like the need and then getting involved with traveling around and helping other service members? Like how did you kind of fall into that role or find yourself to that role?
Well, I'll try to keep it brief.
Oh, you're
Well,
fine.
because of my teeth. Well, because of my teeth, right? Remember, I'd said that they'd
Yep.
gotten knocked out,
Yes.
and back then, there weren't a lot of like now technology. So I had always my teeth were always a sore spot for me, right?
Okay.
Because they had to put a bridge in and stuff because they'd
Yep.
knocked out my front teeth.
Yep.
And every time I looked in the mirror, I felt like it was always a flashback because they didn't
Mm.
really do it properly, or you could always tell me something was wrong with my teeth. Because of starting the process of healing, I started to gain a little confidence where I was starting to push the VA to finally fix my teeth properly.
Nice.
And in doing so and taking the steps needed to do that, because I was getting a little pushback, so I learned that I had to file a White House hotline complaint. And then after that, I had to threaten a congressional inquiry because the reason my teeth were messed up was because of assault.
Mm.
So in doing that, one of the females that were working on my teeth, one of the techs, she actually took me aside and she said, can I talk to you a minute? Can you explain what happened to you if you don't mind? Because it's still happening. And actually, they're giving me a hard time. I'm actually being asked to come out. And that sent chills down my spine because it made me angry that so many years later, this is still happening. They're still treating women or men the same way. They're still victim blaming. They're still victim shaming. And knowing that my daughter was getting ready to go off to college, I asked her, I'm like, do you really want me to stay in Wisconsin? Is it going to be that big of a deal to you? Or do you mind if I kind of go and do this? Like, I'm realizing that there's a need for veterans. They need an advocate. They need somebody that's either gonna help them and fight for them, or somebody needs to go out there and do something that has the time and the passion to do it. And she was very supportive, and I sold everything. Once I knew she was set up there and I helped her move, I sold everything I owned, and this is what my dog and I are doing. And there are times when I kind of question, like, is this insanity or is this what I'm doing? But with each veteran I help,
Yeah.
and in the success that they're getting, whether it's I'm sitting with them and helping them get the care that they need at the VA, or whether it's them finally getting the service connection that they need because their MST, military sexual
Yep.
trauma, wasn't recognized, or whatever it is, it makes me realize more and more that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. And
Absolutely.
that's how, and I got my teeth fixed. So
Nice. Yeah. Congratulations. That's huge because, like you said, that was a trigger for you. Well,
yes.
that's an impossible trigger to get away from until
Yeah.
it's fixed. And
Yeah. And now when I look in the mirror, I don't have that shadow. I feel like that shadow is finally gone. Like when I look in the mirror, I can actually be like,
awesome.
my teeth are normal. I don't have that shadow anymore. And
Yeah.
that's to me, that's
So
everything.
you said you sold everything, so now you can travel and do this full time. So do you self-fund all this, or do you have like donors that help you out, or how does that kind of work?
No, Not, and I mean, I've had people tell me that's what I should do. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So right now, like right now, I'm staying with my friend in an apartment. So I've had a friend in Michigan that let me stay with them. I'm staying with a friend here in her apartment, or I've done Airbnb hopping where if I message somebody in Fayetteville, North Carolina, I happen to stay with a veteran and they give me good discounts. Like if it happens to be a veteran, they've only charged me, I think, $900 for 30 days, which I think
Wow.
is a steal.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually less than the cost of rent or house payment.
Yeah.
So I'm actually right now at this point, it's cheaper than what I was living in a condo for.
Yeah, for sure.
So for right now, I haven't really needed to need help with funding just yet. So I haven't really pushed for that. And that's where I am right now.
Yeah. I think you have an awesome story, and I think you could totally do like a GoFundMe. And you've already got like some social media presence. Just get it out there. Um, I think people would totally help, with some of your funding and everything. And I think what you're doing is awesome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
for sure. Because you're right, it is super needed, and there is, when you're transitioning, because I just recently did the transition piece, right? Like I took off my uniform May 12th. As you're
Oh,
transitioning,
wow.
yep. As you're transitioning, right? Like, yeah, there's a lot of like big classroom generic talks, or if you're coming out of special operations, they have some other organizations that'll kind of work with you and help prep you and things of that nature. So for me, I was initially retiring, and then my PTSD was intense enough that the psychologist on base gave me a P3, so it turned into a medical retirement, right? Um, and it's interesting though, because the way the medical process works now is they take you to a certain point in your medical board, then they pause you, then you go through the VA process, then that comes back to your medical board, then you finish up your medical board. Um, and you're like going through this process, and you have, I guess, representatives, but they're really not advocates. And so you really
No.
don't fully understand, kind of like, well, what should I push back on? What should I be asking for? What do I need to explain? Because I'll tell you, one of the hard lessons I learned, because they were like, how much pain are you normally in on a day? I'm like, I don't know, let's call it like a one, right? The questions the VA asks is they're really asking like, on, okay, when you're having your bad days, what are those days like? Right? But but
Yes.
but most veterans don't understand that. They don't get that, and they don't hear that, and they don't see that. So um yeah, shout out to you. And again, going back to that unseen element, like having the courage to just sell everything, and then to say, I'm going to travel around and help people, and I'm just going to kind of figure it out as I go. That to me
Yeah.
is incredible. Incredible.
It was a little scary, and I teased everybody. I was like, I have not had so little since I went off to basic training.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a little scary.
Yeah.
But it's rewarding at the same time. And you're right. When I am helping veterans, they don't, and that's the other thing. Like when I am helping them get either a higher level review or helping them get their service connection for their PTSD, what makes me angry is they don't tell you you can use buddy statements, or be honest and focus on your worst day.
Yes.
And the sad part is that the VA, your rater, will ding you if you go in looking nice.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. You got to play the VA at its game.
Yeah.
And when I tell people that, they're like, well, I don't get it, Lottie. What if I feel good? I'm like, it doesn't matter if you feel good. You got to go in looking and feeling like you do on your worst day,
Yeah.
because otherwise they do ding you. And that's the sad reality of
Yeah,
it.
for
And it
sure.
shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it
Yeah.
is.
Well, and I've even had, so coming through ORW Foundation, we've had veterans come through like yourself. We've also had veterans come through from Cold War era, tail end of Vietnam, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, all the way through now, all the post 9/11 war on terror. And some of these individuals, it's like, well, what's your service rating? Like we had one individual who caught the tail end of Vietnam, had been through the Cold War, and his service rating was like 20%. And I was like, how is that even possible with all the, and what it is there's a lack of knowledge about like the PACT Act, and the presumptive conditions that if you were there, if you served in that conflict or that war, you just have to say like, hey, I was in this conflict or war, and the VA connects all those to you. And I think just that general lack of awareness and knowledge and information sharing is a huge, huge gap. I want to go way, way back real quick. I'm going to shift our conversation completely because we were talking about, and I'm kind of curious, we were talking about, the sort of the, we were calling military sexual trauma survivors. We were calling them survivors, not victims, right? Was one of the steps we had made when I was in service, and we were talking about how one of the individuals I worked for, he was trying to advocate up to HQDA, Headquarters Department of the Army, that the crime should impact the individual who did the crime, right? And if that individual has a family, they should still get, whatever the retirement benefits were going to be, or separation benefits, healthcare, all that kind of stuff. Do you think doing something like that would be beneficial? What are your thoughts on that?
I do, because my the perpetrators from mine, I was one of 10 women that it happened to over a period of a
Wow.
weekend. Sadly, because none of those three individuals got punished, two of the survivors are no longer here. They unalived themselves. And I think if that had been around back then, and those three men would have been punished and the families gotten the benefits, then maybe those two women would still be around. So I am a firm advocate, because it's not the family's fault. Let the families get the benefit and let the men be punished, or the women, if it's women doing it to men,
Yeah.
or however. Let the service members or perpetrators be punished, and not let the families be punished.
Yeah. I think that well said. I love it. All right. Final question for you. If you could go back in time and tell your younger self any advice you'd like to, what do you think it would be?
Never be afraid to stand up for yourself, even if you're the only one standing and doing the right thing.
Wow. That's awesome. That is all. Yeah, that is a mic drop moment. And I love it. We talk about boundary setting and being your own advocate and speaking up for yourself. And that is such a powerful thing to do and such a great and beautiful way to say it. So, on behalf of The
Thank you.
Unseen Journey, brought to you by ORW Foundation, I'm your host, Guy. Do us a favor if you haven't done it already, reach down there, hit the like and subscribe. Check out our link if you are a veteran and you're looking for resources. For our guests, thank you so much for joining us today. You have been awesome. Awesome.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you for having me. And yes, please, if you get the opportunity, go to the retreat. You won't regret
for
it.
sure. For sure. All right, everyone. Take care. We'll see you.